something to write with, piece of paper, pencil? Alright, y'all turn on page 28. What we're going to do is we're going to go over some of these terms and some of the things that we're going to talk about in the chapter. As we're going through it, y'all haven't done the vocab for chapter 2 yet, have you? Yeah? Okay. You can get that out. And as we go through, we're going to talk about some of those terms in section 1. And we'll make notes on those and have some discussion on them as we go. Alright, one thing I want to talk to y'all a little bit about that it didn't start off with in the book. As you know, this section is talking about Parliament, the things that parts of our government and colonial government that we got from England. One thing it didn't mention in there is a lot of the ideals and things that helped make up our government came from ancient Greece. The Greek city-states were kind of set up a lot like the colonies were. They governed themselves. They made up laws, and it's kind of where the idea of people having rights and people governing themselves without having someone telling them what to do all the time, that's kind of where it started from. Like I said, Greece was broken up into city-states where they had governors and they had kind of people who were on councils of elders and things like that who helped manage for the good of the entire city-state and things like that. Alright, we're going to pick up right here where it says, start talking about the monarch and kings and queens, stuff like that. Who knows what the monarch is? What is it? A king or a queen, alright? Somebody that rules the country, that makes the final decision. Obviously, in America, we're not going to have one of those. So, that's something that was part of the English government that is still there today, but it's more today when you hear them talk about the Queen of England today, that's just like a honorary position. They still have it, but there's really no power behind it. Parliament makes all their decisions. Who can tell me what Magna Carta is? Abby?
What now?
Magna Carta?
Is that one about the
Yes, ma'am.
Latin for the charter?
Latin for Great Charter. Luke, can you tell me what the Magna Carta did? Can you tell me what the Magna Carta did? Yes.
The Magna Carta was a contract that limited the power of the monarch by guaranteeing that no one would be above law, not even the king or queen.
Okay. So the monarch was put in check by the Magna Carta. They had a monarch, they had a king, and then these nobles were people that really started pushing for a document to be signed that kind of limits the power of the king. All right. These nobles were families of great wealth that had pretty much a lot of influence in England around this time. What they would do is they would help the monarch make laws and things like that. But the reason they had this Magna Carta signed was because the king started becoming very, very powerful, and he started taking advantage of having these nobles around that he could use their wealth and their military, people that were loyal to them for his own good. Okay? So they pushed to have it signed. And the reason that we talk about the Magna Carta is one of the most important documents. It was the first document that limited the power of the king. It was the first time anybody had ever told the king, hey, you can't do this. We're going to control this. You're not going to be in absolute power anymore. Okay? All right, and then these nobles came together after the Magna Carta was signed. They started to come and they made Parliament. Okay? Who can tell me what Parliament is? Brianna? What do you think Parliament is? A law-making body, okay. Do we have something similar to that? What do you think? Do we have something similar to that? A law-making body in America? A legislature, okay. So that's kind of the same thing, right? Okay. Well, these nobles came together and they made up Parliament, and then Parliament took over, gradually started taking over a lot of the responsibilities of the monarch. Once they signed this Magna Carta, it let them protected their rights and they protected their property and things like that, so that the king couldn't just trample all over what they were doing. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about common law here a little bit. As basically, what would happen is common law would be rules or regulations that weren't necessarily written down, but would just be in practice by citizens and would become commonplace practice, or the thing that would happen every day as far as their legal system. All right. All right. And basically, what would happen is common law became more and more, in use, and as they started using it, they developed these precedents. Okay. Ben, what's a precedent? Okay, so what they would do is they would take, when they practiced common law, they would take old cases that were similar. Like I said, I think it says if someone got caught trespassing, what the judge would do would look back and see if there's another case where someone was trespassing or stealing or anything, and use that as their precedent to establish how they would punish that person, and or what would happen to them afterwards. Okay? All right. All right, we're going to look over, keep going. All right. It talks about this Virginia House of Burgesses and this Mayflower Compact is what we're about to get into. Who knows where the first English settlement in America is? Yes, ma'am. Jamestown. Very good. Virginia. Jamestown, Virginia. All right. And Jamestown was named after the Virginia Company, okay? Or Virginia was named after the Virginia Company, which was given their charter by the king to come set up a colony in America. All right, Luke, what is a charter?
A charter is a written document granting land and the authority to set up a colony of governments.
Okay. So basically, they got permission from the king to come over, start a colony, and under his guidance, they'd be able to keep, start the colony as long as they were loyal to the king. Okay. They formed this House of Burgesses once they set up the Virginia colony. Okay. And what it was is this colony was they elected delegates, 2 from each county. And they would come in and they would help the governor make decisions. Now, the governor originally was going to be an elected position, but as you can read later on, for Virginia, the king changed it, and he started picking who the governor would be. But that didn't last very long. So these colonies, or these colonists, started picking their own people. What does that sound like to y'all? Started picking their people to go represent themselves in the government that made decisions for their colony. They elected their own people. Does that sound something like kind of like what we do today? Yes? No?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay. So they started doing that, and then as like it says down here, King Charles canceled Virginia Company's charter and made Virginia a royal colony, a colony that would be controlled by the crown later on, but he still allowed that House of Burgesses to continue as an elected legislature. Okay? All right, and then they signed, who wants to tell me what the Mayflower Compact is? Jemai? What do you think the Mayflower Compact was? An agreement or contract or a group of people, okay? The Mayflower Compact, these people, that came over on the Mayflower, they reached Plymouth, all right? That's where they second colony started, okay? And what they decided on the boat was that they needed something to help regulate themselves once they reached land, okay? So that when they got there, they wouldn't just have chaos and people going on and on, okay? So why do you think they signed it? Why do you think, as they're riding on the boat over, what do you think crossed their minds? Why would they need a piece of paper just to say they were gonna start a government? What do you think? Listen, what do you think? Michaela, what do you think?
What?
Do you think it was a good idea for them to start the Mayflower Compact? If you had been on the boat, would you think you needed a document that would help you start up life as a new colony, or do you think, we don't need that, we'll just go on, start up, everything will just be dandy without it? Anybody? Ben, what do you think? Would you have wanted to sign it, or would you think it's something you don't need, or you would want to sign it? Okay. Abby?
You would kind of end up having to sign it because of if you want to start a government, is that right? If you want to start a government, a lot of people have to sign it because a government's more than just one person.
Okay. Do you think there may have been any peer pressure or anything like that on the boat to sign it, as everybody's starting to sign it, or as people are starting to come up with these ideas? Yes. Why? Abby?
Yes, because if everyone else signs it, then like if one, it's like all or nothing.
Brianna?
Because if everybody signs it, they're all going to have to.
Okay. Well, I'm sure as they started realizing and they started coming up with this plan for them to agree to make laws that are best for everybody. That's basically what the Mayflower Compact is. They decided that they would have a governing body, and that governing body would be responsible for making laws as just as they could for the good of the whole group. Okay? So as people started to see, well, this is going to happen whether I do it or not, because they're going to take care of themselves when they get there. I want to be, taken care of along with the rest of everybody else. I'm assigned this to and work for the betterment of the group. Okay? All right. As we talked about these early colonial governments a little bit, each colony in the beginning, as they started to establish themselves, it kind of ruled themselves independently. It wasn't a united nation just yet. Each colony had a government, each colony had a governor, and this Mayflower Compact really set up a tradition of having a direct democracy in all these colonies and stuff. Does anybody know what a direct democracy is? What do you think? What's a direct democracy? Colby? Yeah. Yes, ma'am. That's right. It is a majority rule. What do you think?
It was all the citizens that debate government matters and vote first thing.
Okay. The voting, that's the big